My dog was growling low beside the bed. Then something scratched the side of the house. Violently, I grabbed my shotgun and looked out the window. A man was standing below our bedroom, completely naked, smiling up at me. I chased after him like an idiot, ran straight into the trees with my gun raised. And then I saw them. Not one, two people, standing between the pines, barefoot, filthy, staring at me without blinking. I nearly fired. They never moved, never flinched, just watched me back away toward the house with my shotgun still raised. I never believed people could just disappear into the woods and stay there. Not permanently, not like animals. But after what happened 3 winters ago, I'm convinced there are people living deep in forests who stopped being normal a long time ago. And I think one of them became obsessed with my family. I live in northern Michigan, about 20 minutes outside a tiny town called Mio. Population barely hits 1,800 on a good year. My wife Sarah and I moved there in late 2021 after my grandfather passed away and left me his property. We'd been living in a cramped apartment in Grand Rapids, so the idea of space and privacy felt like winning the lottery. God, I was an idiot. The place sat on nearly 12 acres of land, bordered on 3 sides by the Huron National Forest. The house itself was old, real old, built in 1942, according to the deed. 2 stories, faded green paint peeling in sheets, a warped wooden porch that groaned even when the wind hit it, and a detached garage that looked like it could collapse if somebody sneezed too hard near it. The front screen door had a tear in it that I kept meaning to fix. Never did, but it was peaceful. That's why we took it. No traffic, no neighbors close enough to bother us. Our closest neighbor was Old Man Carruthers about a mile down the dirt road, and he was half deaf and mostly kept to himself. Just woods. Endless woods. The first strange thing happened during our second winter there, January 14th. I remember the date because it was the day before Sarah's birthday, and I had her gift hidden in the trunk of my truck. It had snowed heavily overnight, about 8 inches of fresh powder. I woke up around 6 a.m. to start my truck and let it warm up before work. I worked construction down in Grayling, which meant leaving early. The second I opened the front door, I froze. There were footprints in the snow, but something was wrong about them immediately. Bare footprints. No boots. No shoes. Just bare human feet, every toe visible in the snow like someone had pressed them in deliberately. They started at the tree line behind the garage, just emerged from the darkness of the pines, and came straight toward the house in a direct line. No wandering. No hesitation. At first I honestly thought maybe I was imagining it. Maybe some kid lost a boot. Maybe I was still half asleep. But no. Clear as day. Human footprints. And whoever made them had walked all the way around the house. I followed the prints carefully, my boots crunching in the snow, my breath fogging in the cold morning air. They circled every window on the ground floor. Every single one. Then they went around to the kitchen door. Then back to the living room windows. Then they stopped directly beneath our bedroom window. I remember feeling this horrible sinking sensation in my stomach, like someone had dropped a cold stone into my gut. Because our bedroom was on the 2nd floor, which meant whoever stood there had been looking up at us through the window, watching us sleep. The prints were deep there, like he'd stood in that spot for a long time. There were slight impressions where his weight had shifted from foot to foot. I ran back inside and woke Sarah immediately. She's a heavy sleeper normally, but the panic in my voice must have cut through because she sat up instantly. She thought I was overreacting until she looked outside herself, standing there in her robe with her coffee going cold in her hand. Then she got pale. I mean sheet white. The kind of pale where you see someone's blood just drain from their face. We called the Oscoda County Sheriff's Department. The dispatcher sounded bored, like she got calls like this all the time. By the time a deputy arrived 45 minutes later, fresh snowfall had already started covering the tracks. The wind had picked up too, drifting snow across the yard. The deputy, his name tag said Morrison, walked around for maybe 10 minutes. He was older, late 50s probably, with the kind of face that said he'd seen enough weird calls to not get excited about any of them. He shrugged and said it was probably some local crackhead messing around. He mentioned there'd been issues with meth users wandering out from the state land before. Said they got confused, didn't feel the cold the same way when they were high. That answer didn't help. Not even close. For the next month, nothing happened. I started to let myself believe Deputy Morrison was right. Some tweaker wandered through, probably stumbled back to wherever he came from, froze to death in a ditch somewhere. The thought made me feel sick, but it was easier than the alternative. Then one night our dogs started going insane. We had 2 German Shepherds at the time, Duke and Sadie. Good dogs. Protective. Duke especially. He'd put himself between Sarah and a strange man without hesitating. I'd seen him do it once when a delivery driver got too close to the porch, but I had never heard them bark like that before. It wasn't their normal warning bark. It sounded panicked, terrified, high-pitched, and desperate, the kind of barking dogs do when they're genuinely afraid. Sadie was scratching at the back door like she wanted to get out and fight. Duke was pressed against it with his hackles raised, growling so deep I could feel it in my chest. I grabbed my mag light from the kitchen drawer, the heavy black one that could double as a weapon, and looked out the kitchen window toward the backyard. At first I saw nothing, just the dark shapes of trees against the snow. Then the flashlight beam passed over the tree line, and I saw him, standing perfectly still between 2 pines, maybe 30 yards from the house. Tall, skinny, painfully skinny, the kind of thin where you can see it even through layers. He was wearing what looked like a dark hoodie and torn jeans. No jacket, no gloves. In January, in northern Michigan, where the wind chill that night was somewhere around -15, just staring at the house. I couldn't make out his face clearly. The hood was up and the distance was too great, but I remember his eyes reflecting brightly in the light. That unnatural silver-green shine that makes your lizard brain scream predator. The second the beam hit him directly, he turned and disappeared into the woods. Not ran, not stumbled or slipped in the snow like a normal person would. He moved unnaturally fast, smooth, like he knew exactly where every tree and branch was, like he'd walked that path 1,000 times. I called the police again. This time it was a younger deputy. Deputy Chun couldn't have been more than 25, and he seemed more interested than Morrison had been. He actually walked the tree line with his flashlight. But again, nothing. No tracks this time. The snow around the pines was completely undisturbed, which didn't make any sense given what I'd seen. The deputy actually seemed annoyed we called, like we were wasting his time on ghost stories. After that, things escalated quickly. Small things at first. Things you could almost explain away. We started noticing food missing from the garage freezer. At first I thought Sarah was using more than she remembered. A pack of venison steaks gone. A bag of frozen vegetables. A whole loaf of bread we kept in there because the kitchen got too warm in summer. Then tools started disappearing from the garage. Nothing valuable. An old hammer, a rusty handsaw, a box of nails. Things you wouldn't think anyone would bother stealing. One morning, I found muddy handprints on the outside of our kitchen window. They were too high up to be an animal. Adult height. Fingers spread wide, pressed flat against the glass like someone had been looking in while we ate dinner the night before. Another night, Sarah swore she heard whispering outside the bedroom wall. Not wind, not animals. Actual words she couldn't quite make out. She said it sounded like someone was having a conversation with themselves, right on the other side of the drywall. I tried convincing myself it was paranoia, that isolation was getting to us. We'd been there over a year by then, and I'd read somewhere that prolonged isolation can mess with your perception. Your brain starts filling in the silence with threats. But deep down I knew somebody was out there, watching, waiting. Then came the night that changed everything. February 3rd, around 2 in the morning. I know the exact time because I looked at the clock when I woke up and remember thinking it was too damn early for anything to be happening. I woke up because Duke was growling low in his throat beside the bed. Not barking, not the panic sound from before. Something worse. A deep, rumbling growl that seemed to vibrate through the floor. The kind of growl a dog makes when it knows there's a threat and it's preparing to fight. I sat up and instantly noticed something wrong. The motion light outside wasn't on anymore. It had burned out earlier that week. I remembered noticing it when I took out the trash, and I hadn't replaced it yet. It was just one of those things that kept slipping my mind. The backyard was pitch black. No moon that night either. Complete darkness. Then I heard it. Crunch, crunch, crunch. Footsteps in the snow directly beneath our window. The snow had a hard crust on it from melting and refreezing, so every step made this distinct cracking sound. Slow, deliberate, not trying to be quiet at all. Sarah grabbed my arm so hard it hurt. Her nails dug into my forearm, and I could feel her shaking. She didn't say anything. Didn't need to. The footsteps stopped. Complete silence. The kind of silence that feels heavy, like pressure against your eardrums. Then something scratched the side of the house. Not lightly, not an animal brushing against the siding. Violently, like fingernails dragging across wood. Long, slow scratches that went from one side of the wall to the other. The sound was horrible, that squealing, scraping noise that makes your teeth hurt just hearing it. The dogs lost it. Both of them started barking and snarling, throwing themselves against the bedroom door, trying to get out. I grabbed my shotgun from the closet, a Remington 870 I'd bought for home defense, and moved toward the window. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold it steady. Part of me didn't want to look, but I did. I pulled the curtain back maybe 2 inches, just enough to see down into the yard, and I immediately wished I hadn't. There was a man standing below our bedroom window. He was completely naked. In February, in northern Michigan, the temperature that night was -8 degrees. -8, and this man wasn't wearing a stitch of clothing. He was covered in dirt, layers of it, like he'd been living in a burrow. His hair was matted and long, hanging in ropes past his shoulders. His ribs were visible through his skin, every single one of them, stark against his pale, dirt-smeared chest. His feet were black with filth and what looked like old, dried blood. And he was smiling. I don't mean normal smiling. I don't mean the kind of smile you give a stranger on the street. I mean ear-to-ear grinning, every tooth visible. His lips were cracked and bleeding from the cold, but he didn't seem to notice. Didn't seem to feel it at all. Like he was happy we finally saw him. Like he'd been waiting for this moment. Sarah screamed. I've never heard her make a sound like that before or since. It was pure terror. The man tilted his head slowly to one side, that unnatural, jerky motion you see in birds, then he sprinted toward the woods. Still completely silent. Still barefoot, running through crusted snow at a full sprint like it was nothing. I did something incredibly stupid. I threw open the front door and chased after him. I don't know what I was thinking. Adrenaline completely took over. I was in my boxers and a t-shirt, no shoes, shotgun in my hands, running through the snow toward the tree line. The cold hit me like a physical blow, but I didn't care. I wanted to catch him. I wanted to end this. I remember reaching the tree line and hearing branches snapping ahead of me. The sound of someone crashing through underbrush. Then silence. Complete, sudden silence. I swept my flashlight through the woods. The beam cut through the trees, illuminating snow, dead leaves, fallen branches. Nothing. No movement. No tracks in the snow, which was impossible. He had to have left tracks. But as I turned around to head back to the house, I heard breathing behind me. Close. Way too close. Maybe 15 feet. I spun around and nearly fired. My finger was actually on the trigger. A half second more and I would have pulled it. There were 2 people standing between the trees. Not one. 2. Both barefoot. Both barely clothed. The woman was wearing what looked like a torn flannel shirt and nothing else. Both staring at me without blinking. One was the man from the window, still smiling that horrible smile. The other looked smaller. Maybe a woman. Her hair was just as matted. Her face just as gaunt. She was holding something in her hand, something small and dark. I couldn't tell what it was in the darkness. Neither moved. They just stood there silently, branches framing them on either side like some kind of nightmare painting, watching me. I backed away slowly toward the house, keeping the shotgun raised the entire time. My bare feet were completely numb. I couldn't feel my toes. My hands were shaking so badly the flashlight beam was jumping all over the place. Neither followed, but they also never looked away. Their heads tracked me perfectly as I moved, that same bird-like motion, until I was back inside with the door locked and bolted. The police searched for hours that night. 3 deputies, including Deputy Chun again, an AK-9 unit they called in from the county. The dog was a big Belgian Malinois that looked like it could take down a bear. They found something. An old campsite deep in the woods about half a mile behind our property, hidden in a hollow between 2 ridges where you'd never see it unless you were right on top of it. Inside were empty cans, dozens of them, some so old the labels had rotted off. Rotten blankets stiff with frost and mildew. A rusted camp stove. A fire pit that had been used recently, the ashes still faintly warm. And dozens of photographs. Not just ours. Pictures of other people too. Hikers. Campers. Families. Some looked decades old. The detective said it looked like they'd been stealing from campsites and backpacks for years, taking whatever they found. Cameras, food, ID cards, probably grabbing entire bags while people were distracted or asleep. And then there were pictures of us. But these weren't taken by them. These were our own photos. Indoor lighting. Posed. The kind you keep in a photo album on your shelf. Family gatherings. My wife and I on our wedding day. Pictures from our own house that we didn't even realize were missing. Which means at some point, they'd been inside. Walking through our rooms. Going through our things. Taking whatever they wanted. And we never noticed a thing. They told us whoever stayed there had likely been living in the woods for months. Maybe longer. The condition of some of those stolen photographs suggested they'd been out there since before we even moved in. But they never found them. The K-9 tracked their scent for about a mile deeper into the state forest, then lost it at a creek. Like they'd walked through the water deliberately to break the trail. We moved 3 weeks later. Packed up everything we owned. Left most of the furniture and moved to a condo in Traverse City where the closest neighbor is 20 feet away and there are streetlights everywhere. I sold my grandfather's property to a developer for half what it was worth. I didn't care. I just wanted out. And to this day, I still wake up sometimes expecting to hear scratching outside my window. Sarah sleeps with a light on now. She never used to. Because once you realize someone has been watching you for months without you knowing, walking through your rooms while you were gone, taking your personal photos from your own shelves, you never really feel safe again.